Here's a map showing Siberia, a region that extends from the Ural Mountains to the Pacific Ocean, from the Arctic Ocean to Mongolia. Due to the frigid weather of the region, many age-long secrets are concealed in the depths of the Siberian permafrost, a permanently frozen ground. From the remains of weird creatures to scary organisms, Siberia never ceases to amaze scientists. Here are 15 things discovered frozen under Siberia that shocked the entire world. Let's go check them out. Number 15. The extinct baby horse. These are the remains of a baby horse that lived between 30,000 and 40,000 years ago. The shocking part of this discovery is the quality of the foal's remains. Its skin, hair, hooves, and tail remain intact. A team of Russian and Japanese scientists in the enormous Batagayka crater in the Siberian region of Yakutia found this little horse. This region is famous for hiding woolly mammoth fossils. The Batagayka crater is a vast 100-meter deep depression. It formed due to rising temperatures heating and melting the Siberian permafrost, a permanently frozen ground, and causing ice and soil to collapse into an expansive pit. As it began to grow, it started to reveal many long frozen animals. Scientists had estimated that the exposed layers of the crater's soil could reveal 200,000 years of climate history. The foal belonged to a now extinct species known as Equus lanensis, a species said to have different genes from horses currently in Yakutia. Scientists believe the foal might have been around 2 months old when it died. According to Semyon Grigoryev, head of the Mammoth Museum in Yakutia, the horse could have drowned after getting into some kind of a natural trap. Nevertheless, scientists are interested in learning more about the foal. They've taken samples of its hair, biological fluid, and the soil that covered it. This will enable them to determine the foal's environment and diet. Number 14. The Polar Princess Mummy. This was the head of a polar princess that was discovered mummified in permafrost soil in the 12th century. The polar princess, aged 35, was the only woman buried among almost 3 dozen men. The remains of the mummy are astonishing. First, her long eyelashes and teeth are impressively intact. Her head with long hair is also well preserved. She was around 155 centimeters tall. The mummy has a green tinge on her face that is believed to be pieces of a copper kettle that will protect her in her journey to the afterlife. Archaeologists believe that the intention was not to mummify her, but that copper helped to achieve the unintended consequence. Polar Princess was a member of a mysterious medieval civilization that survived by hunting and fishing and was connected to Persia. Archaeologists questioned why she was buried in the necropolis believed to be a burial ground for men. A plausible answer could be that she was an elite member, but there was no evidence of jewelry found in her tomb. In addition, bronze temples were found close to her skull, wrapped inside animal skin and birch bark that surrounded her. Like other human remains, the mummy has its feet turned toward the river. This act is seen as having religious significance. Although the bones were poorly preserved and could not allow archaeologists to determine the gender, her face clearly suggested that she was a woman. Dr. Sergei Slepchenko of the Institute of the Problems of Northern Development to Men confirmed that detailed analysis would be carried out on the remains to understand more about the lives of early polar settlers. And number 13 is the discovery of Deloid rotifers. These are microscopic multicellular creatures with complex anatomies. The creatures constitute one of the most radiation-resistant animals on our planet. They can withstand extreme acidity, starvation, low oxygen, and long years of dehydration. But the scariest features of these creatures is their ability to come back to life after tens of thousands of years in the deep freeze. These tiny creatures were discovered after a team of scientists drilled about 11 feet below the surface of permafrost in northeastern Siberia. They were found living in a temperature that hovers around 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Radiocarbon dating revealed that the tiny creatures had survived 24,000 years when they were discovered and could reproduce once defrosted and warmed up. Samples collected from the site of the discovery include surviving nematodes or roundworms. Now, Deloid rotifers have been around us for some time. They were commonly found on moist strands of moss, in rain puddles, and across freshwater bodies in Arctic and tropical regions. Antony van Leeuwenhoek had spotted them in gutter water from his house in 1702. He would later describe them as little round animalcules. Despite this, scientists have yet to understand how the creatures can protect their cells and organs from catastrophic conditions. Not only that, the fact that they have been able to diversify to more than 450 species over millions of years, most likely by asexual reproduction, has left scientists more baffled. As a way of finding answers to the questions trailing the complexities of the organisms, scientists have sent both rotifers and tardigrades to space. The answers they get may help them to preserve other animal cells, tissues, and organs on Earth. Number 12. The cave bear carcass. This is the discovery of well-preserved remains of cave bears on the Lakovsky Islands, a region which constitutes a part of the New Siberian Islands archipelago. The cave bear carcass is the latest addition to the growing list of preserved carcasses from the Ice Age period emerging from the permafrost. Scientists have unearthed cave bear skeletons in the past, but they have yet to find a complete carcass as of this discovery. Cave bears are believed to have lived during the Ice Age era sometime between 22,000 and 39,500 years ago and are known to be terrifying. Though now extinct, they lived simultaneously with larger animals such as woolly mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and mastodons. They could weigh up to 1,540 pounds, a size larger than that of polar bears. The cave bear's remains were discovered by some reindeer herders in Russia's Arctic and reported to the Northeastern Federal University in Yakutsk, Russia, a university specializing in studying preserved Ice Age mammals. Despite being found in thawing permafrost, the animal's soft tissues, organs, and fur were intact. Maxim Cheprasov, a senior researcher at the Mammoth Museum in the Northern Republic of Sakha, Russia, revealed that radiocarbon analysis is required on the remains to enable them to narrow down the age of the cave bear. An analysis will be carried out on its teeth to reveal details about its diet and the kind of territory it grew up on, and an analysis of its intestine will reveal what the bear ate. At number 11 is the discovery of the carcass of a small Ice Age bird. Two ivory hunters made the discovery on a hunting expedition in search of fossilized mammoth tusks near the village of Belaya Gora in Siberia in 2018. The small Ice Age bird once flew through the skies nearly 50 millennia ago. As expected, the region's frigid, iced ground cover protected the bird from decay and scavengers, leaving it in perfect condition. After the flyer's age was determined to be approximately 46,000 years old with the aid of radiocarbon analysis, Love Darlan, professor of evolutionary genetics at the Center for Paleogenetics in Stockholm, who accompanied the two ivory hunters, decided to study the precise species of the bird. Delicate samples of feathers and a tiny piece of tissue were collected from the carcass for further studies. Using DNA sequencing, the bird species was matched to the lineage of a female horned lark known as Eramophylla alpestris. There were two subspecies of horned lark, one residing on the Eurasian tundra and the other in Mongolia and its neighboring nations. This new knowledge provided clues about how climate change affected the divergence of the species. The location of the final resting place of the bird near the banks of the Indigirka River in Siberia shared a home populated with various Pleistocene epoch creatures such as majestic mammoths, bison, horse, rhinos, and lynx. Number 10. Frozen remains of a mammoth. This was discovered in the Lakovsky Islands off the northern coast of Siberia. The remains were fresh and the blood was still liquid. But how a 10,000-year-old beast can still have its blood liquid at a temperature that is 10 degrees Celsius below zero remains a mystery. Semyon Grigoriev, chairman of the Museum of Mammoths of Yakutsk's Northeastern Federal University, said that the fragments of muscle tissues of the beast have a natural red color of fresh meat. According to him, the preservation might be because its lower part was lying in pure ice while the upper part was in the middle of the tundra. He assumed that the blood of mammoths contained some cryoprotective properties. While analyzing the mammoth's teeth and bones, it was discovered that the creature was between 50 to 60 years old when it died. Researchers believe she may have fallen through the ice while escaping from predators. This is because her trunk was found separately, though nearby. Grigoriev has been in a project that involved searching for mammoth remains for several years. The recent discovery might renew the discussion about the possibility of cloning mammoths. In 2011, Northeastern University signed an agreement with Suam Biotech Research Foundation of South Korea to clone a mammoth using recovered bone marrow. But as you might know, many observers have been skeptical about the possibility of achieving this goal, primarily because the team is led by geneticist Hwang Woo-suk, who lied about cloning human stem cells in 2006. Notwithstanding, the discovery is incredible. Number 9. The Frozen Cave Lion Cub. This frozen cave lion cub was discovered perfectly preserved. It must be from the lineage of Simba. The 28,000-year-old cub was found frozen in the Siberian Arctic. At first, one would think she's asleep and would be woken up by a touch, but this wasn't the case. She has been mummified. Though the golden fur is matted with mud, it is undamaged, and her whiskers are still preserved. Her teeth, skin, soft tissue, and organs are intact despite being mummified. Her claws are still sharp and can prick your fingers. During the last ice age, Siberia was home to tundra wolves, bears, woolly rhinos, bison, and cave lions, a slightly bigger relative of present-day African lions. The Siberian Simba, nicknamed Sparta, was one of the 2 baby cave lions roaming the northern hemisphere during the ice age. The other cub is known as Boris and is said to be 43,448 years old. According to research, this cub was probably 1 or 2 months old when she died. Although computed tomography scans revealed some distortions in her skeleton, including skull damage and dislocation of ribs, Love Dahlen, a professor at the Center of Paleogenetics in Stockholm, Sweden, ruled out the possibility of her being killed by some predators. According to her, the cub likely died in a mudslide and might have been buried very quickly, given how she was preserved. So perhaps it was Scar who masterminded this. For further studies, scientists tested the frozen remains for infectious diseases such as anthrax and other ancient pathogens. Also, they seek to understand the evolutionary history of the cave lion, the population size, and unique genetic features through DNA sequencing. Number 8. The Ancient Giant Virus. This is the unearthing of a 30,000-year-old giant virus dubbed Pithovirus sibericum in the frozen wastelands of Siberia. In loose terms, giant viruses are the ones that can be seen under a regular microscope. However, the giant virus was still decidedly microscopic, but in the world of viruses, they're larger than standard specimens as they measure 1.5 microns in length and 0.5 microns in diameter. Scientists have warned that climate change in the Arctic and its subregions could awaken dangerous microscopic pathogens that were thought to be dormant or eradicated. The regions in which the giant virus was found are known for mineral resources, especially oil, and will become the target of those involved in industrial exploitation, especially as the ice melts away. Such exploitation may pose serious risks as the viruses may be woken up. To further ascertain the chances of waking the virus up, Jean-Michel Claverie, one of the lead researchers, and his team attempted to revive the discovered virus by placing it with single-celled amoeba, which will play the host. Although in the process it was discovered that the virus could not infect animal and human cells. Though the discovery is a significant feat as it is the most ancient virus found in Siberia so far, the discovery also adds a further question. If it is possible to unearth viruses that have long been buried, shouldn't we be more concerned about other, deadlier viruses surfacing on Earth? And just when the world is healing from the drastic effects of COVID-19. Number 7. Disturbing message in a frozen bottle. Paul T. Walker, a geologist, had decided to prove the melting of glaciers. He thus put a note in a bottle and buried it underneath rocks near a glacier in 1959. The instructions in the note state that the finder should measure the distance between the bottle and the glacier's edge. Some 53 years later, 2 researchers uncovered the bottle that had been frozen in ice. It was a small 250-milliliter plastic sample bottle with a torn notebook paper tightly rolled inside. They then followed Walker's instructions by remeasuring the distance using GPS equipment. The findings came out as disturbing. The glacier had retracted itself over 200 feet since Walker wrote the note. The treasure had been lost for more than 5 decades because Ward Hunt Island, where the piece of the bottle was found, is an incredibly hidden valley that is off any track that anyone would pass across. It is disturbing how someone from the 50s could have proven the existence of global warming. At the same time, evidence that abounds today, especially regarding climate change, shows that we need to worry more about global warming. Number 6. The giant frozen craters. This was unveiled in the frozen Yamal Peninsula in Siberia in 2014. Air near the crater contained high concentrations of methane. This is unusually high as air normally contains just 0.0000179% methane. A helicopter pilot found this 20-meter wide hole. Some posited that the formation could have resulted from a gas or missile explosion. Others said it could be a result of a meteorite impact, and a few people said an alien might have been involved. Andrei Plekhanov, an archaeologist at the Scientific Center for Arctic Studies in Salakhard, Russia, believes that the crater's formation could be linked to the abnormally hot Yamal summers of 2012 and 2013. As temperatures increased, permafrost thawed and collapsed, causing the release of methane that had been trapped in the icy ground. Other researchers, such as Hans Wolfgang Huberton, a geochemist at the Alfred Wegener Institute of Potsdam, Germany, argue that long-term global warming might have caused a burst of methane enough to create such an enormous crater. According to him, permafrost at a depth of 20 meters has warmed by about 2 degrees Celsius over 2 decades. A similar but smaller hole was reported to have been discovered nearby, making scientists worry about the threat posed by releasing trapped methane. To avoid such an ugly incident, the Russian team suggested drilling holes into the permafrost to release the pressure artificially. This has been said to be a nearly impossible endeavor since the depth of the crater has yet to be discovered. However, we can only hope to avoid an accident from the hole anytime soon. Number 5. Ancient plant species discovered on the banks of the Kolyma River in northeast Siberia. This plant was stored away in permafrost by squirrels over 30,000 years ago and was brought back to life after cultivating it from fruit tissue recovered from frozen sediment in Siberia. This makes the ancient plant the oldest plant to be resurrected by biologists. The late David Gilichinsky from the Soil Cryology Laboratory in Moscow, Russia, and his team applied growth hormones to the fruit tissue and tried to kickstart cell division, which ultimately produced a viable, flowering plant. The resurrected plant could be compared to modern-day Silene stenophylla of the Campion family. According to Gilichinsky's team, there were more than 70 squirrel hibernation burrows on the riverbank. Each layer was found at depths of 20 to 40 meters from the present-day surface and is arranged in layers containing bones of large mammals, including woolly rhinoceros, bison, mammoth, and other similar representatives of fauna. Similar fossilized caves have been discovered in Alaska and Canada. Buford Price from the University of California, Berkeley concluded that as long as permafrost melts, a small fraction of ancient seeds will likely germinate, survive, and grow spontaneously. To rule out the possibility of such ancient plants being merely modern contaminants, Gilichinsky's team verified that the fruit was from undisturbed deposits. Number 4. The carcass of a woolly rhino. This was discovered by a resident named Alexei Savin near a river in Yakutia, Siberia. At the time of the discovery, almost all the rhino's hooves, teeth, and internal organs were still intact. In fact, some of its thick fur coat was well preserved. Its horn, which had broken off, was found nearly intact beside it. Upon DNA analysis of the carcass, scientists estimated the rhino to have lived between 20,000 and 50,000 years ago, making it one of the most intact ancient rhinos ever seen. Valery Plotnikov, a paleontologist from the Russian Academy of Scientists, had this to say about the rhino. The young rhino was between 3 and 4 years old and lived separately from its mother when it died, most likely by drowning. Woolly rhinos are herbivores that lived throughout Europe and northern Asia until they went into extinction about 14,000 years ago towards the end of the last ice age. They had 2 horns, one small horn between its eyes and another large one protruding upward. They were covered in thick fur coats. They fed on grasses, and adult rhinos could reach lengths of 13 feet and weigh up to 2.2 tons. As the Earth's temperature continues to rise, discoveries like this will likely become more frequent. A similar case was the discovery of a baby woolly rhino carcass in 2014 in the same region. Number 3. Utsi the Iceman's remains. Erika and Helmut Simon from Nuremberg, Germany discovered this mummified body of a man who had died in the Utsil Alps. Nicknamed Utsi, the 5,300-year-old frozen corpse was well preserved, such that its injuries and stomach contents have helped researchers to be able to explain the story of his last days in the mountains. Some of those stories include that he suffered from ailments such as Lyme disease and a weak heart. Also, the research shows that his last meal was venison and ibex, and that he died due to an arrow shot in the back. What coward couldn't face a man before shooting him? Utsi's body had been stuck in the ice at 10,530 feet above sea level. In fact, excavating the body wasn't easy. It was only after 4 days of trying that success was recorded. His body was taken to the Institute of Forensic Medicine in Innsbruck, where archaeologist Konrad Spindler determined that the body was at least 4,000 years old. And now scientists have been able to locate traces of Utsi's blood, making it the oldest blood sample to have ever been retrieved. With the aid of advanced nanotechnology, we were able to understand how he died, which provides a new frontier of knowledge for police in the way they study blood found at crime scenes. Utsi lived sometime between 3,350 and 3,100 BCE in the Chalcolithic or Copper Age. He was approximately 5 feet and 3 inches high. There are over 50 tattoos on different parts of his body, and he died at the approximate age of 46. His remains have been refrigerated at the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology for visitors to see and appreciate. Number 2. The discovery of piles of human bones by a British forest guard near the Himalayas in 1942. The tiny body of water nestling at 16,500 feet up in the Indian Himalayas where the bones were found has been nicknamed Skeleton Lake. The guard came across the almost perpetually frozen lake and now thawed to discover that thousands of human bones were buried there during winter. There were speculations that remains belonged to the deceased Japanese soldiers that died in World War II. This is because of the items recovered from there. Such items included jewelry, artifacts, and clothing. Others said that the bodies were probably thrown in the lake. However, research indicated that the remains dated back to 850 AD, much earlier than World War II. Analysis of the skeletons with modern technology revealed that the people were killed in the same manner. Interestingly, some of the skeletons had short stature while others were tall. Further DNA analysis revealed that there were actually 3 different groups of people that died in at least 2 waves, about 1,000 years apart. An urban legend even has it that the soldiers were celebrating and that this angered a deity, causing it to rain down hail on the men. After examination of the skulls, it was discovered that they had small pieces of hail lodged in them. This brought their celebration and, of course, their lives to a brutal end. The site of the discovery has become a popular destination for tourists. Number 1. Luba the baby mammoth. This is the discovery of the frozen carcass of a 6-month-old baby woolly mammoth eroding out of a riverbank in the Yamal Peninsula. Yurikudi, a Nenets reindeer herder, made this discovery. When Russian paleontologist Alexei Tikhonov and French explorer Bernard Bourget learned about the find, they conducted a scientific study on the specimen, which, to their utmost surprise, was remarkably well preserved. Unfortunately, dogs attacked Luba before the researchers could get to the site, removing her right ear and part of her tail. Police were able to help reclaim the mammoth in a nearby town and transferred it to the Shermanovsky Museum in Salakhard. Kudi, the reindeer herder, was allowed to name the mammoth owing to his hand in getting the creature to safety. The 41,800-year-old carcass weighs about 110 pounds, the size of a large dog, and measures about a little under 3 feet tall. Researchers found clay in her trunk, leading them to believe she probably suffocated from it while drinking water or crossing the river with her herd. That same mud has helped to preserve her body, including her eyes, skin, and organs, keeping them in a near-pristine condition. Upon carrying out some x-rays on her body, the results were heartbreaking. She had nascent tusks that were no larger than a human finger. If not for the attacks, the remains of the baby mammoth would have been in perfect shape. The discovery is now available for the public to view in the Shermanovsky Museum. Leave a comment if you found any of these discoveries intriguing.